participate in like coding the lab, you could also just join there, and then I will like show how to do these attacks. And yeah, then I will talk about ImproHound, which is a tool that I've made. And then you'll be given another task, those of you that want to participate, where you have to fix the AE, so like preventing these attack paths from being exploited. And at last I will walk through all these fixes. So, who am I? I'm Jonas, as I've already said. I live here in Copenhagen, and I work with Active Directory security. So, yeah, I do assessments, like kind of penetration testing of this Active Directory. But what I do most of the time is actually to help clients improve the security of Active Directory. So I'm more on the blue side, you can kind of say. And yeah, I've been working with Active Directory for 2 years now. So yeah, I have the same meme, so not nice, but didn't know. Okay, so Active Directory, this is a Microsoft product used for managing users and computers in a large environment. So if you imagine like a big corporation where they have a lot of employees and they all have a company laptop and they have some servers, all the users will typically be created in Active Directory, and all the computers and all the servers will be joined to the domain, so they will exist in the domain. And then from the Active Directory, you can like make policies that says like which users are allowed to log into which computers and with which rights, and you can set rights like IT supporters, they are a member of this group, and this group can reset the password of all the users. So when employees call the IT support and say, I forgot my password, then IT support can help them. Yeah, but it's an old big system that Microsoft made in year 2000, and it's filled with vulnerabilities because they probably designed it back in the 90s, so that was before a lot of modern attacks. So like the fundamentals of Active Directory is pretty bad. It's built around protocols that doesn't support MFA, and that's a lot of stuff that's really bad. One of the things that are bad about Active Directory is credential stealing, which is an attack, at least in this case, where you have two different users logging into the same computer. Let's say, for example, I have a problem with my work computer, so IT support will log into my computer. Let's say I'm also a local admin. Then I actually have the ability to steal the credentials of the IT supporter's account. So essentially get the IT supporter's password. And now I have access to a whole lot of more computers. And that's the same thing is true for servers. So yeah, if you're an attacker, you get access to one computer. You can wait for other users to log in, so you can steal their credentials and use their account to log into the new systems. It's a big problem. Another problem is control drift, and by that I mean like all the permissions configured in Active Directory. So all users and all computers and all other objects has this ACL, which is an access control list. So that means like all the permission configured in the object, and over time sysadmins tends to fill these ACL lists with all kind of different crazy permissions, because like you just add permissions until it's working. That's like how people do, and if it works, then don't try to fix it, right? So yeah, many of these permissions can be exploited, and that's a big problem. So there's plenty of other problems with the Active Directory, but I will focus on credential stealing and control drift for now in this talk. So, Bloodhound. Bloodhound is a free and publicly available tool which attackers use to actually find these vulnerabilities in Active Directory environments. Because if you have a big Active Directory environment, you maybe have like thousands of users, thousands of computers, and so many objects. So it's like impossible to go through everything and figure out which permissions can I actually abuse and which one can I change to actually end up getting domain admin, which are like the most privileged group in Active Directory. Bloodhound does that. It collects all this data from Active Directory and then store it in a graph database, and then the relationship between the objects in Active Directory is the edges of the graph database, and then you can like just search for an attack path through the environment. So in this example I have up here, there's a user called KR, which has a long attack path which leads all the way to domain admins. And it will have taken like hours to find this attack path manually, but yeah, it's very easy to do it this way. So yeah, it makes it easier for the attackers, because then you only, if you're compromised one user, you can use that user and then find attack paths from there. But as sysadmin, it's a shit show, because it's hard to find all the attack paths that lead to domain admins and other privileged groups and computers. So what can sysadmins then do? They can try to do what Microsoft says, and at least Microsoft used to say that the best thing you can do about Active Directory is to implement the tier model. Now they have said like tier model is legacy, but they say that about everything in on-premise Active Directory. They want their customers to move to the cloud, so everything is legacy. But I still think it's a good idea to implement tiering. So tiering is to split your AD infrastructure up in tiers. So you have your most important servers, and that will be your domain controllers, which are the servers that authenticate the users. That means that these servers has a copy of every user's password hash on the server. So they are of course very important and most critical to the AD. Other servers could be like the SCCM, which is a system that you could use to push out software to all the servers in the domain. And other services or other servers that are like critical to the company. They should be placed up in tier 0, and then you will have your domain admins and the most privileged users logging into that tier and managing these servers. Then you have the rest of the servers, so web servers, SQL servers, and stuff like that in file servers in tier 1. And last you have tier 2, which are like the normal users of the company and their laptop and everything that we really don't trust. So that will also be where you have like emailing and browsing the internet and stuff where you usually get your first compromise. And the idea is that then if an attacker, let's say I have a normal workstation in a company, and I click a link from a phishing email, which is like or the most common cases of compromise. So yeah, my laptop get compromised. Then the attackers should not be able to use credential stealing or control abuse to get access to tier 1 or tier 0. So that would be completely isolated. There might be a way to get to other computers in tier 2, but at least we'll protect the other layers of the tier model. And how is that implemented? That is implemented by implementing logon restrictions and control restrictions. So if we have to prevent credential stealing, we need to use different accounts for each tier. So that means that the privileged domain admins, they can only log in to the servers that are in tier 0, because then the credentials will only be in tier 0 and they will not be down in tier 2. So there will not be, attackers will not be able to find the credentials of domain admins on the computers in tier 2 or tier 1. And the other thing is control restrictions, and that's like in the sense that you shouldn't have control over objects which are in a tier higher than yourself. So in the sense that, of course, normal employees should not be able to reset the password of domain admins, for example, or have write access to a computer object, these kind of things. Yeah, and I think, yeah, now we will talk about the AD lab. Yeah, I've created a domain controller VM. So it's an Active Directory environment consisting of one computer, which is very unusual, but it works for like a small test lab. And the goal for you is to find the 3 attack paths from 3 different users to domain admins. It will be 3 completely different attack paths, and it will not be like local privilege escalation, so it will be like abusing Active Directory misconfigurations. And yeah, that's, if you're really good, then there's another path that is hard to find. But yeah, the VM has antivirus disabled, so you can use any tool you like. But I have already included all the tools that you should need. I've set a very weak password policy, so you can just, if you compromise a user, you can just set the password to an empty string, so you don't have to remember what you have set the password to. And I will recommend that you disable the users that you have used to become domain admins, so you don't accidentally use them afterwards. But let's look at the lab. I actually have it right here. Yep, so this is my domain controller. Let's try to open users and computers. So the first user is user 1, empty password. And here we have the Active Directory environment. So you'll see that there's, this is the domain controller that yeah, I'm sitting on here. And down here we have the 3 users for the 3 different attack paths. So yeah, all with empty password. So it's just to log in as this user and try to find the attack path. I have Bloodhound running on the server. This is also very unusual for a domain controller. Also, these users, they are of course low privilege users, and they are allowed to log into a domain controller, which is also not something you will see or maybe you will actually see that in the real environment, but it's not something you should see. Yeah, if you open Bloodhound and take the data which are here and upload it to Bloodhound, then you'll be able to find the attack path you have to exploit. You don't have to run Bloodhound first. So, let me give an example. It's very slow right now. So I've also created a test user just to show you how it works. So just type in the username of the user that you want to use for finding attack path, and then your target. That'll be domain admins. Then you can, it will automatically find an attack path if there are any. And it works this way that you'll see that the user here, which was the user I typed in, it has an edge to something else. Here it's, I don't know if it's too small. Oh, it doesn't get bigger. But it says member of, so that means it's member of this group. And this group has this force change password. If we right click it, we can see the help here. And it says something, the members of this group have the capability to change the user, this password without knowing that the user's current password. So we can reset the password of this user. And if you have if you need more info, you can click the abuse info. So that will explain how you can do it in PowerShell or something. But I recommend that you just use the using computers, because that's easier, unless you're very familiar with PowerShell. So if we were logged in as this test user, we would actually be able to reset the password of this user, which is TO-admin. And we can find that user here. So here we have the user. So we can right click it and we see there's this reset password. And then you can just set an empty password, for example. And now we get access denied because I'm logged in as user 1, which doesn't have this permission. But there's plenty of different edges that you have to exploit, and you have to do it in different ways. So that is the challenge, to try to log in as the 3 users and find the attack path for each user to domain admins. And I think, I heard earlier that there was an issue with the virtual machine, and I actually also had the same issue myself. When you open it in VMware, you have to go into the options of the virtual machine and set the guest operating system to Microsoft Windows, and set the version to Windows Server 2019, else it'll just not boot up. Maybe I should say time for pizza, but I'm not sure the pizzas are here yet. They're late? Okay.
They're a bit late.
Okay.
So if there are any questions, I'll just be running around with the mic. So you can raise a hand if you have anything you want to ask Jonas. Right?
So I think I might have missed it a bit, but the data files that you imported into Bloodhound there, how did you
Oh yeah.
get those?
Yeah. Let me just clear the database again here. So it's actually quite straightforward. You can just drag and drop.
No, I mean like where do you get those files from?
Oh yeah, maybe I should have mentioned that. That is the tool Bloodhound, and it has a data collector called SharpHound. So I've already run the SharpHound, so it creates these files and put them here. I've just done it so you don't have to do it. All you need to do is just to import them. But it's this PowerShell script. Yeah. So that's how the data is collected.
And yours, were these the ones in the USBs that you passed around before?
No, that's actually the entire virtual machine.
Okay.
That you need to open in VMware. So everything that you've seen here so far, except my presentation and these notes here, will be included in the VM.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Jonas, practical one. Is someone saying that if they can't download, did you put a download limit on the drive or something? Or
No, I did not do that, but I don't know if there's any default limit.
Google has a default one for large files.
Yeah, that might be an issue, but I heard that somebody succeeded in downloading the file. Yeah, so maybe I should look into that if there's a limit. But yeah, for those of you that are here, you can just copy them from the USBs. That will also take way less time. But I'll look at it and try to make it available.
but only if you have sandboxes or honeybox or something like that. Don't trust him.
Yeah. I would say you can trust me, but that's just every liar, I guess.
That's an assumption.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, Dimitri before you said planet and now we're coming with USBs.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, dressing up nicely to look like somebody you can trust. Yeah.
Yeah, this is an ImproHound workshop, right?
Yeah.
But you only talked about Bloodhound,
Yeah.
so I'm a little confused.
Yeah, I understand that. But I will talk about ImproHound later, actually, because I think it's a good idea to get an idea of like what is possible in Active Directory and all these attacks. And I think the attacks are, it's quite interesting because it's not something you can patch. It's misconfigurations. And also it will give you an idea why I created this tool, ImproHound. So I'll get to that. Yeah.
Yep. Be right there.
You mentioned that Microsoft think of the tiering model as legacy, and you're saying that since they say all on-prem stuff or pre-cloud, as I've heard they call it, is deemed legacy for them. I guess that they still have some arguments for deeming it a bad design choice.
Yeah.
Do you have some comments on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be great if everybody just got rid of Active Directory on premise, because it's a horrible system. But like, it's there's also issues with the cloud solutions like Azure. But I think it's of course also other issues, like now you don't have control over the servers that your systems are running on unless you do this private cloud thing. But in general, I think it's a more secure setup to use Azure instead of on-premise. And I think the reason that companies don't do this, or they do but don't do it fully, is that it takes a lot of time to do the migration to the cloud, and also if they have all these servers already running, then they will not use them anymore, and instead pay for Microsoft servers to be running. So it can be expensive, at least in the beginning. Over time, I think it's a better choice economically as well. Because you don't have to do maintenance of servers. You can just focus on your application and the company and the stuff that is supposed to run on the servers instead of maintaining servers.
Thanks. We just have one more question over here.
Yes, so I don't know if you just answered, but the Azure AD, that's another product for Microsoft, right?
Yeah.
Do you have the same issues with ACLs that just grows and that you can see in the tokens and stuff like that?
Yes, but it's not as bad. But there are definitely, you can do stupid stuff in it's called RBAC, something. They have these same kind of thing like ACLs in Azure as well, because you can put permissions on stuff, and of course some users need permissions to some servers and some objects in Azure. So you can always misconfigure, I guess, but it's not as bad. Like in Active Directory, the credential stealing is a big problem. Also, that in the default in Active Directory environment, domain admins are allowed to log in as admin on all computers, which make it very an obvious choice to use domain admins to log in to fix stuff all around, and then you leave your credentials all around. That's not the same thing in Azure, at least. But there's also problems in Azure.
Is there one final question before we take a break? No? Okay. Another quick question for you. Do you know how long the pizzas are? How far?
They are not far, but we can actually go to the bar and have Pepsi and coffee and some water and some chatting and wait for the pizza there.
Yeah. Cool.
In the meantime.
Yeah. Good. Thanks, guys.
One last. Guys, and if you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel, that would be very much appreciated, because it helps us to stream live, actually. So make us up, please.
Tak.
Oh yeah, the mic. I did.
Ja,